This is CNN, a service of Turner Broadcasting System.
Live from Washington, Crossfire. On the left, Tom Braden. On the right, Fred Barnes. In the Crossfire, Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy, former chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Republican Senator Jim McClure, member of the Senate Select Committee on the Iran arms deal.
Good evening. Welcome to Crossfire. When the blow finally fell, it was expressed gently, ever so gently. The president did not seem to be aware. The president has a management style which places a heavy burden on advisors. The president proceeded with a concept that was not reflected in reality. Before he left the meeting today, Ronald Reagan promised to read the report. He should do so alone in his room. For here is his White House, laid out for inspection in tedious display of error, ignorance, and deceit. And here he himself appears in meeting after meeting, conversation after conversation, a kindly man, oddly unwitting, seemingly not to hear, oblivious to men and events, as though sleepwalking. If the president reads the report of the Tower Commission, he will cry for his country. Fred?
Tom, I'm tempted to unravel the flaws in your introduction, but I'm going to ask Senator Leahy a question. Senator, you've looked into this whole Iran arms deal and affair as a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Now we have this report from the Tower Commission that exonerates the president of any illegalities, of committing any crimes. Isn't it time for you and other liberals in the Senate to say, look, this isn't Watergate, and to get off the president's back?
I'm not so sure that anybody in the Congress has called it Watergate. I've heard that from the press. I've not heard that from a single member of Congress, nor has anybody talked about the president's illegality. What we have talked about, however, is that we have the President of the United States speaking very, very tough, saying that we won't deal with terrorist nations like Iran. We won't pay ransom for hostages, and so on, and telling our allies to hold tough and do the same thing. At the same time, when he was dealing with a terrorist nation, Iran, he was paying ransom for hostages and doing the worst kind. And that's what we have been saying. We've also been saying,
well, let me go back
and I raised about a year ago that we have a man in the White House, Colonel Oliver North, who is obviously violating the Bolin Amendment, dealing with the Contras, helping do everything from picking targets to supplying arms. And we were told very solemnly by the White House, no, we've looked into that. That's not happening. That's what we've been saying, and this report says the same thing.
But let's deal with the president a minute. Doesn't this report say, and don't you agree that the president has been exonerated of any illegalities?
If you're asking the question, did the president take money,
violate the law
through a Swiss bank account and send it down to the Contras? No, the report doesn't say that. No,
any illegalities whatsoever.
In fact, the report does not say. In fact, the report does say they don't know who had. They don't know who had the money. What the report does say, however, is that the National Security Council was out of control. Who is the National Security Council? The president, the vice president, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State.
Well, let me try this. Wait, Tom, I want to try one more time and see if I can get Senator Leahy to say whether the president has been exonerated of any violations of the law, or do you know of any that he might have committed?
Does this report charge him? Of course it doesn't.
It exonerates him.
In fact, this report treats him very gently, takes another member of the National Security Council, the vice president, and doesn't even mention him once in the whole thing. No, in that regard, he should be delighted to see this report. It pats him on the head and say, gee, please read me.
Well, are you saying this is a whitewash?
All right, Senator McClure, look, you've read the report. Now, let me put you in as bipartisan a fashion as I can. Do you think it would be better for the country, in view of this report, if the president stepped down?
Oh, certainly not. There's nothing in here at all that indicates that. I think Brent Scowcroft said it about as well as anybody did, that the process is right, the procedures are right, the structure is correct, but it's staffed by people that don't serve the president well within the structure.
But the question of illegality now, sir.
Sure.
We've got, the Tower Commission does not entirely dispense with it. The president, if he knew, the report says the president didn't know about the Contra affair. And yet today, they found evidence in Colonel North's file of him saying the president knows all about this and has approved it. Now, we know that he was something of a braggart.
That's certainly one of the things that...
but it's something to look into.
Well, obviously, it's something to look into. But I think Fred is right in the respect that the report that was issued today does exonerate the president of any illegality. Now, the question of whether or not the personnel served him well and whether the structure created in the NSC and really is accomplishing what this president needs. Remember one thing, the structure doesn't exist except to serve the president. The president is not there to serve the structure.
Well, it seems to me that the Tower report proves that the president just wasn't there. But let me give you an example of what I'm talking about, is the president, whether the president knew. Here is a quote from his speech of last November. The charge has been made that the U.S. shipped weapons to Iran as ransom for hostages, that it undercut its allies and secretly violated its own policy against trafficking with terrorists. Those charges are utterly false. Now that's the president.
Well, let's
now he says another report. Other reports have surfaced alleging U.S. involvement in secret shipments of spare parts and weapons. Not one of them is true.
Let's put that into the context of where he was at the time. We were he was in the midst of negotiations, rightly or wrongly, that involved shipments, and it also involved hostages. He still had reason to believe that other hostages would come out safely. There was a point in the negotiation, the point in the conversation, where his primary concern was the completion of that set of transactions, the completion of the safety of the hostages. Discussion at that particular time was, I think, very legitimately a matter of concern.
Are you telling me that the president lied to us all?
I think the president was very properly concerned about what would be the effect upon the lives of hostages and the concern about the families in the time. And I think you have to give a due consideration to that.
Hey, Tom, let's get back to the overriding question in this, Senator Leahy, and that is, what did the president know about the diversion of money to the Contras, which was clearly illegal, and when did he know it? Well, this report says today that there is no evidence to show that he knew about that diversion of money. Do you know of any evidence that shows that?
No, could well be so.
Well, so you agree then that he did not?
No. I agree there's been no evidence that he has. If that matter was done and gone, I mean, if this thing answers, let me take a moment here. If this report, which even the people who wrote it said leaves a lot of questions unanswered, but if assuming it answers every question, you seem to feel comfortable that it does, then there's no need for Jim McClure's committee or any other committee to even look into this.
Well, that's a very good question, Senator. Don't we know the essentials of the story now, except for what happened to the money?
I think we know a lot of the things we know. That contrary to the statements of the White House, the United States is paying ransom for hostages. Contrary to the statements of the president, we're dealing with Iran. Contrary to the assurances given to the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and others, the United States had people violating the Bowen Amendment.
I don't think there's any evidence of that at all.
Well,
I don't think there is any evidence of that.
Well, do you think that Dolly North didn't?
Well, there is no evidence on the record yet that there was a violation of the Boland Amendment. Now, that's one of the questions that has to be decided, and I think there is a reason for us to investigate further and to get more information.
Well, Senator McClure, let me try you once more. Now, you say that
the president... different evidence than I have about Oliver North on the question of the Contras, Jim. I mean, the fact is that he was involved, and the fact is...
Involved in what? Involved in what?
Well, read the report that your committee has received from our committee.
Well, I have already read that, as a matter of fact, and I've also looked at the report that came out of the
Let me try you one question.
There is no clear evidence that the Boland Amendment was violated. Let's get that straight on the record, because I think that's absolutely important.
You don't think that's why people have been recalled from Central America? You don't think that you don't believe the open public confirmation hearings that are going on right now for the new CIA director in that regard?
With respect to whether there's a violation of the Boland Amendment, I do not believe that there's clear evidence that the Boland Amendment was violated. There's a question of what the Boland Amendment means. I think you would confess that the legislative history of it is very murky.
Let me bring you back, gentlemen, to the president. Now, Mr. McClure, Senator McClure, you said that he might have been saying these things to the American public in his speech because of his fear for the safety of the hostages, and I think that's a valid point. But now, later in the speech, the same speech, he says, and he's not, here it has nothing to do with the hostages, it seems to me, it's been widely reported that Congress, as well as top executive branch officials, have been circumvented. All appropriate cabinet officers were fully consulted, the actions were in accord with law, and the relevant committees of Congress are being or will be fully informed.
Well, one of the things the Select Committee is going to look at, and will supplement the work the Intelligence Committee has done, and supplement the work that the Tower Commission has done, is to look at the very question of what did the President know and when did he know it?
Well, obviously,
If I can use Howard Baker's
Don't we
old
know
term.
the answer to that now?
No, it's not a
isn't.
statement of fact.
What isn't a statement of fact?
The one I just read you that the President made, that all cabinet officers were fully informed. I mean, if you read the Tower Commission report...
Let's separate what the President knew at that time when he made that statement. I think it's entirely possible that that statement was factually correct at the time that it was made.
Well, but
Well, it wasn't factually correct. It wasn't factually correct. It wasn't factually correct.
Secretary Schultz knew,
And
Secretary Weinberger knew.
No, and the President knew. The law requires, in a covert action of that nature, certain people within the Congress to be notified. They have not been
in a
notified.
timely manner.
In a timely
manner.
manner. 11 months is not timely.
Well, you as
11 days
President-
may conceivably.
Senator
may
Leahy,
conceivably
would you as President risk the lives of hostages if you feared leaks, if you notified Congress?
The President has notified us of covert actions where far, far more people were at risk and lives were at risk than in this matter, where far more serious things were happening. Not one word is ever
Well, I
leaked on
think
them.
there's
gentlemen,
another fact
gentlemen.
that's involved in that course of events, and that is, I believe it is plain from the record, that the great many people that were involved in it believed that the next step would be the final step. It was one of those that they kept
Gentlemen, I have to
strung
interrupt
out
you.
on just a little bit more.
I have to interrupt you both and tell you that we're about to take a break for a commercial, and tell the audience that we'll be back right after that.
Got a VCR and a taste for high adventure? Prepare to take off on the most daring air missions of World War II. Your first target, Schweinfurt, deep inside Nazi Germany. In range for our bombers, but not their fighter escorts. You'll face the Luftwaffe alone.
More bandits coming up from the tail. 6 o'clock. Approaching EIP.
The Schweinfurt ball bearing plant, crucial to Hitler's war machine. A mission as costly as it was daring. And just one episode in the videocassette Air War Over Europe. Only $4.95 when you subscribe to the award-winning series World War II with Walter Cronkite, produced by CBS News. Walter Cronkite covered the war firsthand. In Air War Over Europe, he brings it home to you with nearly 90 minutes of rare footage, including missions over Hamburg, Peenemünde, and the Ploeste oil fields. In later cassettes, you'll hunt down Germany's most feared battleship, the Graf Spee. As the Wehrmacht retreats, you'll race to secure the last bridge into Nazi Germany. And just months after Pearl Harbor, you'll strike back at Tokyo. Take Air War Over Europe for only $4.95, $45 off regular price. Keep it. Then about every other month, collect another high-quality cassette for $49.95. You always have 10 days to return any cassette for a full refund. No minimum to buy, cancel anytime. So if the action gets too hot, you can always bail out. Experience Air War Over Europe on your own VCR. Here's how.
Credit card holders call toll-free, 1-800-441-2929 to get your first cassette for $4.95. That's 1-800-441-2929. Or send check to CBS Video Library, Department 850, P.O. Box 1111, Terre Haute, Indiana, 47811. Positively no CODs accepted.
Welcome back to Crossfire. Our guests are Senator Patrick Leahy, Democrat of Vermont, a former chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Senator Jim McClure, Republican of Idaho, member of the Senate Select Committee, which will is already investigating the Iranian arms sales. Senator McClure, there's a tendency on the part of everybody, I think, to some extent, to blame all of this on Don Regan. And yet the Tower Commission report today points out that the President Reagan, on his finding of January 17th, which was the legal basis for the whole thing, didn't even inform Don Regan of that finding. He kept it a secret from his own chief of staff. Now, what I would like to get you to express an opinion on is the president lying, or is he simply out of it? Does he not know what's going on?
I don't think either is true. This president very widely is perceived to delegate a lot of responsibility to aides. The finding that he signed was a piece of paper brought to him to sign. It was not a discussion document at the time that it was signed, as I understand it.
No,
and I do believe that the Tower Commission very forcefully said the people within the process did not adequately inform the president. Knowing of his management style, they should have been more forceful in presenting to him their views. And they very properly, in my opinion, said Don Regan, the chief of staff for the president, failed in his duty to the president in that respect.
Senator Leahy, following up on what Tom was asking, you sounded earlier like you think the report was soft on President Reagan. Do you think it was a whitewash?
No, I don't think it's a whitewash. I think that you had three very hard-working people who made as good a report as they could with the information they had available to them.
Which was an awful lot of information.
Which was a lot of information.
At least as much or more than you all had in the Senate Intelligence Committee.
And without the testimony of some key members, Admiral Poindexter, General Secord, Colonel North, without their testimony. Now, I suspect that Jim's committee and others will put together, if they can't get the testimony of those people, will at least get the testimony of the people around them.
But they can get the testimony of those people. Wait a minute. Now, all they have to do is grant immunity to them, and they can get their testimony.
Let me tell you something on that. I spent 8.5 years as a prosecutor. I take a very hard-line view of something like that. I don't mind taking some of the peripheral characters, people that can put together the record, giving them immunity to get it. But Colonel North, described as an American hero by the president, Admiral Poindexter, General Secord, others, these people are people who have taken a sworn oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States. I'm not about to suggest giving them immunity.
I know, but
until you get, please let me finish, until you've gotten every single bit of information possible. If the only way you can get the final story, if you've exhausted all other avenues, then that's a question for the committee to decide. But I can't see giving them some kind of imprimatur on their activity, people sworn to uphold the laws of the United States, by giving them immunity right off the bat.
But immunity from a congressional committee would not necessarily bar prosecution, and as a matter of fact, so much evidence has already been gained against them that they could certainly be prosecuted. All three of the people you've mentioned, couldn't they?
Well, you were questioning before whether any laws were broken.
That was only by the president, though. Here we're talking about Oliver North, John Poindexter, and Richard Secord. My point is this.
I'd like to see more information before immunity was given.
Yeah, but foreigners are amazed at the inclination of Americans and the press and Congress to savage their president, to savage presidencies. Couldn't this thing be wrapped up quickly if
I would hope it would.
Immunity were granted to these three men?
Let me say there's an area I think every one of us agree on. I would hope it can. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence has done a great deal of work. The House Committee had. We turned those over to both the House and Senate investigating committees. There are extremely good people, Republicans and Democrats, on both of those committees. And I think that there is one common thread that goes through their discussion. Certainly I've heard it from Dan Noe and Lee Hamilton and the others, is that let's wrap this thing up as quickly as it can.
Senator McClure is a member of, a distinguished member of one of the committees that Senator Leahy mentioned. It bothers me a little bit that you seem to have made up your mind on the president not lying and not
No,
being...
I haven't said he didn't lie. I've said there is no evidence on the record yet that indicates that he did, and that was the very strong... The Intelligence Committee said they had no such evidence.
I don't know what you're lying to the
The Tower
committee,
Commission came out and said exactly the same thing.
But to the American people, you say, here he is a week afterwards, a week after that speech.
Where were you on the night of November the 17th of last year?
I don't know where I was, but if I had signed a finding that we should transfer arms to the Ayatollah, I would remember it.
I'm not as exactly certain whether you would remember all the sequence of events that went around it.
Well, look, he says to the American people, he says that the only shipments involved were the one or two that followed my January 17th finding, and there are no other shipments with which the U.S. was involved.
The question is...
Now, we've got 6.
That's 6. There's some that were before that in which the United States was not involved, and that let's look at that record, too, and I'm sure we will. That's one of the areas of inquiry I think we must flesh out the record that's been made in the two committees.
What about the cover-up that the Tower Commission reports was attempted? Do you think there was a cover-up attempt?
I'm not certain, because, and that's one thing that I'm going to review a lot more closely than I have right now, is to try to analyze what those documents really mean to which they made reference. There was apparently a memorandum that said, how are we going to present this evidence to the President and to the American public, which seems to me to indicate again that the staff may have been trying to make certain that the President was protected, but not by fully informing him, but by the way in which he was informed.
Well, we all work in different ways. I'm sure your office works differently than Senator Leahy's. But can you imagine yourself in your Senate office with a big staff, which you have, and in your committees, and they run all around you and don't tell you what they're doing and only hand you a piece of paper and say, get up and say this?
Let me put it this way. There are things and times when I have said to my staff, go do certain things. And I haven't known until it was completed exactly how they carried out that instruction. Now, obviously, if they were going to do things of very great import or that varied from my instructions, I would expect them to come back and tell me.
But Jim,
if they did not come back and tell me, how would I know?
But Jim, the bottom
That, I
line
think,
is
is
when the
part of
president...
what has happened here.
But your responsibility, Senator,
sure.
would be to know.
And the President has said, ultimately, it's my responsibility. And I don't think he's tried to shuffle that away at all. But if they didn't tell him what they were doing, that was at variance with his instructions.
Yeah, but isn't it President Reagan who ordered the Attorney General to get to the bottom of the whole thing?
And he did a great job of that. When virtually everything he came out with within a few days ends up being dissected and torn apart afterward.
Yeah, but you would never have known about the contra-diversion until he brought it out.
Well, all right. Once we got the
later.
papers, the fact is,
Quickly,
when the President went on television and said, in effect, we weren't paying ransom for hostages, he knew full well that's exactly what we were doing.
All right, Senator Leahy and Senator McClure, thank you very much for being our guests on Crossfire. Fred Barnes and I will be back in just a minute.
Finally, a way to lose weight that's brought to you by nature. It's the Fiberful Weight Loss Plan. Fiberful tablets are made from natural fiber.
So the Fiberful plan helps you eat less and lose weight.
Fiberful, the natural way to lose weight. This woman has an irritating rash that's inflamed and itchy. She's using maximum strength Cortisone 5 to go deep below the skin's surface. Cortisone 5 gets under the itch for soothing relief and help in healing. Cortisone 5, itch relief and help in healing.
Stand by for an exciting business opportunity. Get a pencil and paper ready. Breathtaking, elegant, beautiful beyond description. Typical expressions overheard when people see stained glass overlays, designer glass, and handcrafted entries. Through modern patented processes, this new world designer glass meets or exceeds increasingly stringent building code restrictions. In homes and businesses, its uses are almost unlimited. SGO offers its franchisees a multi-patented process with exclusive license and territorial rights. As a stained glass overlay franchisee, you get the combined knowledge of the corporate staff and its established franchisees, more than 10 years of on-the-job experience, continued training through regional meetings and seminars, and ongoing corporate support. You have the freedom to be your own boss in a highly creative business with universal product acceptance and unlimited growth potential. In addition, SGO is a business which enjoys low material costs, low labor costs, and nominal inventory requirements. With an SGO franchise, you receive a turnkey package, which includes a comprehensive one-week training program covering overlay production techniques, sales and marketing, bookkeeping system, and business operations. If you're looking to pursue the American dream of owning your own business and have $45,000 to invest, call toll-free
1-800-854-0561, extension 896. For California residents, call 1-800-432-7257.
We'll send you a free information packet on becoming a stained glass overlay franchisee. Call now while exclusive territories are still available. Be your own boss. Enjoy rapid growth and financial security.
Call 1-800-854-0561, extension 896 now.
Discover the opportunities of stained glass overlay.
Fred, after all the work you've done today, reading the Tower Commission report, I want to give you one more quotation, get your reaction to it. Lieutenant Colonel North was involved in all our activities. He is a national hero. Ronald Reagan.
When he got back the Achille Lauro terrorists, he was a national hero. Tom, I have the impression that you don't really like this report, and I think I know why. It's because it exonerates the president of any illegality, and it shows that this affair isn't Watergate after all, as all you liberals had said it was.
I know it's not Watergate. It has nothing to do with Watergate. It's an affair all on its own, and it is bad. From the left, I'm Tom Braden. Good night for Crossfire.
From the right, I'm Fred Barnes. Join us next time for another edition of Crossfire.
It's 27 minutes past the hour. Good morning. I'm Susan Rook with the news update. President Reagan today is reportedly searching for a successor to embattled White House Chief of Staff Donald Reagan. The president has summoned his top strategist to the White House tonight for a discussion of major changes in his administration. The Tower Commission report on the Iran arms scandal blamed Reagan for the chaos that's engulfed the White House. Sources in the administration say the Chief of Staff's job was offered to former Transportation Secretary Drew Lewis and former Nevada Senator Paul Laxalt. Both turned it down. The Tower Commission report released yesterday also blames President Reagan for failing to keep a tight control over the staff of his National Security Council. The report said the arms deal was a swap of arms for hostages and that the president's policy was not accurately reflected in the reality of the operation. In the report, fired NSC aide Oliver North is depicted as a manipulator. He's portrayed as having made up stories about meetings with President Reagan that never took place. President Reagan grimly accepted the commission's findings. Shortly afterwards, Mr. Reagan promised to do whatever is necessary to reform the operations of the NSC. The president plans to address the nation on the issue next week. That's the news up to the minute. I'm Susan Rook. Stay tuned to CNN Daybreak at the top of the hour for a complete wrap-up of all the overnight developments. Showbiz Today is next.
Can't believe it. In just 1 week, I lost enough weight to actually see the difference.
SlimFast is making a pledge. Give us a week, we'll take off the weight.
I use SlimFast for breakfast and lunch. It was delicious, and in just 1 week, I lost weight.
The SlimFast plan can live up to its pledge because each shake is a nutritious, low-calorie meal.
My husband didn't think I could lose the weight.
Boy, was I wrong.
The SlimFast pledge. Give us a week, we'll take off the weight. Also try delicious SlimFast nutrition bars.
Superstation WTBS proudly presents a glorious celebration of the American spirit. They came to this country in search of a new beginning. Their pride, ambition.
I'm gonna have it all, Jake.
And lust for power.
I want to be the first immigrant to be elected to the state senate.
Will make them or break them.
It's not such a terrible price to pay, Marco. For all this.
Faye Dunaway and Richard Burton in his final performance, Ellis Island, 8:05 Eastern on the Superstation, beginning Monday night. To the 20 million people who still want news for breakfast.
Good morning. These are the headlines on Daybreak.
Look at the morning sports news.
Let's get some financial word now.
News, not fluff. Switch to Daybreak, morning 6 to 9 on CNN.
I'm George Plimpton, inviting you to experience the pleasures of Architectural Digest. Only Architectural Digest lets you inside the homes of people such as Johnny Carson, Jane Seymour, and Donald Trump. Homes our foremost architects consider their own proudest achievements. Doesn't Architectural Digest belong in your home?
Get 12 issues of Architectural Digest for only $29.95. Save almost 45% off the cover price. Call 1-800-257-1257.
The Beatles come to compact disc. We'll have reactions. Read a quiz.